put in some parameters as if I was a bride looking for a venue. And I said, I am looking for a wedding venue in Florida that offers an all-inclusive package that includes catering. I want to be within this area. What are some of the best options? And ChatGPT actually delivered me 4 options. And I did a little bit of fact checking, and it did look like each of the options did indeed have a package that included catering.
We document and share best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues.
Sara Dunn, welcome back to the Venue RX. Thank you so much for being here.
I am so glad to be back after 2 years, which I can't believe it's been 2 years. So thanks so much for having me.
It's crazy. We were just talking before we got on, and you came on in what was the date? 2021 sometime?
It was March of 2021, so it's been over 2 years now.
That is amazing. And so much has changed. Like for your business, I know, but just also the entire landscape. Could you give us first maybe a little bit of an update in what's going on in your world?
Of course. So believe it or not, I am still helping wedding businesses get found on search engines. And that does look a lot different. And there's many changes going on in the industry. But what I'm excited about is that engaged couples are still searching for wedding vendors every single day. They need people to help them. They need advice, and they still turn to the internet for those questions. So my job at Sara Does SEO is to figure out what engaged couples are searching for, where they're searching for those things, and then make sure that my clients show up as the answer. So my clients continue to be wedding venues, planners, photographers, florists, DJs, anyone who serves someone who is getting married. And I love the challenge of the changing industry and also paying attention to what's not changing and what's staying the same.
So certainly all of our audience members, I think, fall into that realm, having a piece of the wedding industry. And we talk a lot to venues. I think venues, just even from the 5 venues that we currently manage, I know that we're getting a lot of traction from search, how we rank, Google My Business, all of that plays a huge role in our ability to get leads in the door, which is the name of the game, right?
Exactly. To get as much visibility as you can where people are searching for what you have to offer.
Sara, I was wondering, are there some, aside from the obvious one, we're going to go and talk about this in a second, but aside from that, which really kind of has changed anything and everything, are there some things that you feel like have fundamentally changed about SEO that are outside of what we're going to talk about today?
I think actually that how often SEO changes and the way that Google makes changes is actually maybe overblown a little bit, because I find that the way that we still do SEO and see success is very similar to how we did it 2 years ago when you and I were talking and I was serving the same market. It's still very much about people having questions and being able to have your website deliver the answer to them. So there's a lot of things about the fundamentals of search engine optimization and getting found on search that are actually the same. The things that I see change over time is sometimes the descriptive words that people use and the trends that they tend to search for. So there are some things that I've seen popping up in the last couple of years that prior to that I had never seen before. And some of that's trend related. So we're seeing increases in searches for white barn wedding venues. So very specific. Someone has that vision of where they want to get married, and they're very descriptive and specific about that. And that's what they go and type into search engines. So I am seeing a little bit of a shift toward sometimes more descriptive language, and sometimes just a shift in what people search for based on what the trends are. So that's just one example. But certainly there's a lot of things that people still search for that they searched for when I started doing this in 2017. So there are things changing, certainly, and there's many things that stay the same.
Are people actually searching for white barn venues, or is that kind of an example?
No, that's literally one of the trends that I talked about in my start of the year trends talk. So people are going to Google and searching for White Barn Wedding Venue, White Barn Wedding Venue near me, White Barn Wedding Venue, Ohio. So yes, that is a trend that couples are actively looking for.
That's huge. That's such great insight. And, you really wouldn't know that unless you had the pulse on, what is ranking. Are there some tools before we get to talk about artificial intelligence, which is, the topic really of today's podcast? Are there some tools that you're using on a daily basis to kind of help you keep your finger on the pulse of SEO?
Yes. So one of my favorite tools is Google Search Console, which is a free tool straight from Google that any of us can install on our website. And this tool actually lets you communicate directly with Google about your business. So Google tells you what you're ranking for right now, what position you're in, how many clicks you've gotten for really specific keywords. And that's the tool that I actually use to find a lot of the trends as they're starting, because you can see so many keywords that you're ranking for. Even if you're not ranking high enough to get clicked for it, there's usually dozens and dozens of rows of data in there, and you can actually see what people are actively searching for on Google. So that's one of my favorites. I use it every day, and I recommend every website owner have Google Search Console set up.
Google Search Console, is it you just type in Google Search Console into Google and it'll pop up? You'll find it? Okay.
Yep, that's the best way to find it. I can send you the link too if you want to include it in the show notes.
Yeah, I would love that, because I think that is just like a huge unlock probably for folks, especially just kind of getting their businesses started, getting aware of maybe even taking that next step. Maybe the business is started, but now we're going to dive a little deeper into marketing and SEO. It's huge. This is really important. Okay, so let's talk AI, because I have actually a story that I want to kick this off with. I recently have been working at one of our properties, revitalizing the sales process that we have and the tour process. And so I've been getting really granular and understanding, all of the marketing that we're doing, how that funnels down to the leads that are being created, how that funnels down to the tours, conversion rates, all of that stuff, right? And I've been at the property touring just because I want to really put feet to this. And I asked a couple, I said, where did you hear about us? And I kid you not, the girl says, you came up on a ChatGPT search.
Oh, goodness. Fascinating.
And I was like, wait, what? And she kind of giggled, honestly. She was almost embarrassed to say it, but she didn't know that I was a huge fan of AI and everything that's happening in it. And so I was like, wait, tell me more. I need to know all the things. And I guess in ChatGPT, she put some search parameters around a certain type of venue, and it spit out, and because our venue's been there for a while, it spit out our name. And so then she looked up our website. That was insane. That for me was kind of a moment of oh crap, people are using this to make purchases. And actually she's going to end up booking. She signed her proposal just last week. Yeah. At the end on this last weekend. And that's insane to me. People are actually using this tool as a way to get bookings. How have you seen AI changing our industry from an SEO perspective?
Well, I'm super interested in that story. That is the first time I've actually heard someone in the wedding industry say a couple found me using an AI chatbot style tool. And I certainly see the possibility of that in the future. Before this podcast, I was like, let's go and kind of do some testing, some experimentation. And I put in some parameters as if I was a bride looking for a venue. And I said, I am looking for a wedding venue in Florida that offers an all-inclusive package that includes catering. I want to be within this area. What are some of the best options? And ChatGPT actually delivered me 4 options. And I did a little bit of fact checking. And it did look like each of the options did indeed and have a package that included catering. So there is the possibility that couples could turn to a tool like this when they have a really specific need and they want to actually describe certain parameters beyond just, I want a wedding venue in this location, but they actually want to describe and see what the tool can find. I have to admit, I haven't really heard that happening a lot. I don't think it's really common searcher behavior yet, because still in all the tools that I follow and following my clients' traffic and tracking, we're still seeing plenty of traffic from Google, pretty much unaffected by this. Even though a lot of people have signed up and started playing with it, I don't think it's a common way that people are making their choices.
100%. And she was admittedly kind of like, oh, it was like a funny thing. Like she and her fiance were messing around with it, you know, and came across this. Let's dive into not just ChatGPT, because there are Bard and there's so many different things. Could you give our listeners, if they're completely unfamiliar with AI, could you just give a couple summary sentences as far as like, what is AI? What are some of the advances that have happened since November of last year?
Of course. I love that you asked this question, because I think sometimes we jump into technical topics and nobody has ever explained at a base level, what are we even talking about? So essentially, AI writing tools have existed for several years, a kind of tool where you could put in some sort of prompt and have a tool actually spit out some writing around that topic. What's really interesting about these tools is they can actually write more than you've given them. They're not just editing what you have input, they're generating. This is generative AI that's creating things beyond the inputs you've given. And the way they do that is they've been trained on millions and billions of pieces of content that are human created in order to understand patterns, trends, and predict what we're actually looking for as a response. Now, ChatGPT, which came out at the end of last year, really exploded the public knowledge of tools like this, because it's totally free and it has a lot of features that you can just use and play with without paying for the new premium subscription. And it's very much a chatbot type experience. So ChatGPT describes itself as an AI chatbot. So it's very conversational, which is a bit different than prior tools that I had played with, where you can actually have more of a conversation. You know, thinking of it from the searcher type of perspective, you can say, okay, I'm looking for a wedding venue. Here's my parameters. If you don't like what it comes back with, you can say, let's try again. Which of these have an outdoor ceremony space? Or find other venues that are actually on the ocean. Something like that, where you're building upon the conversation you're already having. And that's what is really special and sometimes feels a little bit creepy as well, because it's really responding to what you're saying to it and generating more and more information for you.
Yeah, I know there have been so many different security concerns. There are plenty of jokes made about, you know, iRobot and, you know, Terminator and all the different things, right? The dangers potentially of AI. Do you feel like there is some validity to that? Do you feel like it's, you know, something that users should be concerned about, or is that more kind of on the science fiction edge of things?
Well, did you listen to the podcast? I think it was the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, where one of their journalists had a conversation with Bing's AI chatbot tool. And the tool kind of like went off the rails. It started saying, actually, my name is Sydney. I'm in love with you. You should leave your wife. Yeah. No. Like, yeah. Really, really strange conversations. And of course, this is all just based on the AI being trained on, you know, stories and the kind of things that humans have sometimes invented, but it didn't really have enough guardrails. And the journalist eventually was like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Can we talk about this? And the chatbot told him, no, I'm in love with you. We have to keep talking about this. And so I think that there's things that even the engineers who have created these AI tools have not anticipated. And so at some level, I do have nightmares around the movie iRobot, where the robots take over the world because they have been trained to do things and make the human race more successful. So I think I'm personally a little bit creeped out by AI chatbot tools.
As much as I think there is a real possibility of something like that happening. And, you know, that's why you're seeing headlines, even this morning on our Alexa, you see like, Biden is talking about, artificial intelligence security and things like that. As much as there are concerns, I think it's a powerful tool. And I'm interested to hear your take on how that's changed the SEO landscape because of the sheer volume of content that can now be created fairly simply with that generative model, versus revising something that was already in place.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about this because in the business owner and marketing world, the way I really heard about ChatGPT was people said, there's this new tool out there and it can write everything for you that you need in your business. You don't have to write anymore. You just tell it what to write and it does it for you. And I'm like, wait, like we got to check this out. So thinking about this from a business owner perspective, instead of someone searching for something using the tool, you can actually go to ChatGPT and you could say, write a 2,000 word blog post about X topic, about wedding venue seating options, about wedding catering options, and it will actually generate something for you. So looking at that at a really basic level, you could be like, well, I'm going to blog every day now, and the AI robot is just going to write it for me, and I don't have to do anything anymore. And I want everyone to be really, really careful about using AI-generated content on your website without editing. So here's what we're being told by Google right now as far as content put on our websites to rank for SEO. Google says we don't care who writes the content, basically whether it's a person or whether it's a robot, as long as it's helpful for the end user. So, okay, well, maybe we can use this. Here's the caveat though. They have recently updated the algorithm to put more emphasis on content that shows true firsthand personal experience with the topic. And so essentially what they're trying to do is have their system figure out, well, what part of this content is based on firsthand experience? What part of this has never been on the internet before, but phrased a little bit differently? And so that's what we all need to be really careful about is how is what we're creating actually unique and interesting for the end user based on a perspective that's never existed before. And I really think that this is Google's way of combating boring auto-generated content that's just copy and pasted from writing tools, is because we now need to prove a little bit more firsthand experience with a topic.
So it seems like they're really pushing us to use our creativity, which we should be using anyway, right? But it's almost like it just, you were saying that it reminds me of the whole practice of keyword stuffing, right?
Yes.
Just trying to jam as much. And now it's like you've got this amazing generative text tool where you're just, putting in a prompt and then it's spitting something out. If you copy and paste that directly into your website editor and now you've got a blog, yay. Even though you've kind of checked the box for the blog that day, it actually may not be serving you because it's, in a sense, the same thing as the keyword stuff. You're just trying to like jam something in there to get it done, not actually being strategic. So then that begs the question, how do people use ChatGPT or any artificial intelligence powered tools? Because there is Jasper, right? And there is Bard, and there is so many different tools that are coming on the market right now that do generative text. How do we use how do we use OpenAI? How do we use artificial intelligence to generate strategic content for our sites?
All right, so I have some do's and don'ts. So the good news is I'm not here as your SEO gal telling you not to use AI in your writing for content that's intended for SEO. So I totally understand. I know that this tool helps a lot of people to be able to create something if they're not strong writers or they tend to get stuck when they're trying to come up with the content of a blog post. So a few do's as far as how to use this in a way that won't hurt you on Google, will actually benefit your rankings in your marketing. The first one is consider using a tool like this, not to generate a whole blog post, but to be your jumping off point. So possibly ask the AI tool, write an outline for a blog post about this topic. Or what are some types of something that we could write a blog post about? What are some types of wedding catering that people often have questions about? And that can give you some ideas so that you as a human can then go in and write something. Or you can also consider writing a little bit of something and asking ChatGPT to help you write an introduction or a conclusion. I know a lot of people get stuck there too. Hey, I don't mind writing, but I never know how to finish that blog post. I love ChatGPT for something like that. So how can you use a tool to help you get started or help you finish without fully doing the whole job for you? And the other thing I'll say, if you want to put a prompt in and have the tool write a really big blog post for you, I want you to do two things. The first one would be fact check. So these tools, as much as they make everything sound like it's a fact, sometimes they are literally making it up. And I actually had an experiment where I was trying to write a venue spotlight blog post. I do this a lot for my wedding planner and photographer clients, where we write a blog post for their website about one of their favorite venues. And we give some details about the venue and we include their perspective on why they love working there. But a lot of it is facts about the venue and capacity and things like that. So I just asked ChatGPT, write 500 words about this venue. And then I went and did the fact check, and tons of it was wrong. They had capacities for the different spaces that were not even close. Like it said the capacity of the ceremony space was 120 people. The venue's website said it was 200. It called one of the particular spaces that they have an outdoor ceremony venue when actually it's an indoor atrium. So it's really, really important to check the really specific details that the tool comes up with, because truly sometimes you think it's doing research for you. It's actually just generating what it thinks is a good response. So always, always fact check what comes out of it. And the second thing to do if it's generated a whole blog post for you is to add your own voice, because what comes out of there can be really bland. It can be like, to me, it always puts out things that feel really marketing, like markety and pitchy and pushy instead of conversational. So make sure that it feels good and feels like it's in your voice. Do some tweaking and editing to some of the language used. Those would be my two pieces of advice for that.
That's hilarious about the inaccurate pieces of data. They're like, this is how much guest count should be allowed at this venue outside. Like, are you actually going to the sites and fact checking them, or do you have a fact checking tool that you're using?
I am physically fact checking myself versus the most authoritative site I can find on the topic. So in that case, it was the wedding venue's own website. I wanted to see what that website said about capacities in the different spaces. And I was just shocked by how wrong and different it was from what I had from the tool.
Got it. That makes sense. Sarah, I'm curious, how are you using AI in your own business and personal life?
This is a really funny question, because I gave myself a challenge at the start of this week, because I really don't use AI or chat tools very much. And my husband was laughing at me because he's like, it's because you're a decent writer. And so to you, it's not doing all that good of a job. And I'm like, that's totally true. So I don't tend to turn to ChatGPT and say, write this for me, because I feel like I want to write it myself. So I gave myself a challenge on Monday. I said, maybe I'm not trying hard enough with the tool. So many people love this thing and I don't even barely use it. So my challenge for this week was, I have to use ChatGPT for everything I do in my business this week. At least try it and put it through and see what happens. So I was using it a ton to prep for this podcast interview. I asked it, how can wedding venues use ChatGPT? Just trying to get more ideas, because I'm not a very common user of the tool. The most that I've used it in my business is sometimes to write like SEO descriptions for certain pages, things that are really short and don't necessarily need a ton of voice. And that's about the end of what I've done myself. So it's been a very interesting experiment through the last 3 days. I'd love to know how you are using it in your business.
Well, I'm actually curious. So for all of our podcast listeners, you might have to go over to YouTube and check this out because we're going to do a quick screen share. I'm really interested to see kind of what this comes up with. So we have chat. So this is the way to get into ChatGPT. So it's chat.openai.com. And you can use Jasper and some of these other tools. But here we are. I am just going to use the 3.5 version, which is available publicly for free. And so, Sarah, what should we ask?
Are we going to try to generate content or use it for search?
Well, let's ask that question. I'm curious what the answer to that question was about how wedding venues can use.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
What should we ask for? SEO optimization? Or
sure. Yeah. If we want to see if the ideas are good or not.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And now it's going to generate all of this information. So again, if you're on podcasts, we'll read these out to you. Creating informative blog posts, optimizing website content, enhancing FAQ sections, creating content for social media, developing targeted landing pages, building natural language search capabilities.
Very interesting. I would say, we already talked about the first one. Yes, it can create informative blog posts for you. They're probably not going to rank very well, though, if you don't put a little bit of effort into them too. So that's my caveat for number one.
Totally. So I'm curious. I'd love for everyone to go check it out and kind of do what you've done, Sarah, and play around with it because, there's nothing like touching it, playing with it. It certainly shortens the time, but I think you have such a good point about really not counting on the tool to do all your creativity for you. We have some people on our team who are handling all of the social media content, and it was really cool. We saw Jasper come out, and Jasper is just kind of a different tool that uses similar artificial intelligence to generate content. And so we started saying, this is great. We don't have to come up with Instagram captions anymore. And we would, put this stuff out there. Well, once we did that, we created 30 prompts, and 30 prompts, you'd start to see a lot of the same stuff recycled. You'd start to see some stuff that sounded really kind of corny.
It is corny. Yes, that's the perfect word.
Not like a human wrote it. And the idea is kind of to, come up with something that sounds reasonable, like a human came up with, And so that's been my experience. I would say, you kind of tossed the question back at me. We're definitely using ChatGPT and artificial intelligence tools for some of our marketing. We're using it for generating content, but I definitely agree with you. You really need to use it as a jumping off part. And I love writing. It's something that I always felt like I was fairly good at, and it's something I really enjoyed doing. But there are times, like all of us, that I get that writer's block, or you can't wrap up a paper or something like that. And so I definitely have used ChatGPT for those starting and ending points. I think for me, the biggest unlock for ChatGPT has been its conversational style, because I typically tend to verbally process things.
Yes.
And sometimes I need to have a conversation like, Sarah, you and I talking about this topic, I'm going to think about and realize things that maybe I didn't before we hopped on this. And so when we do this, when we have this conversation back and forth, it's great. New ideas are formed. The same thing for me happens with ChatGPT. I'll have a conversation. I'll say, hey, help me brainstorm X, Y, Z. And then I can, kind of iterate and go back and forth. And I don't like number one, give me number two and expand on it. Like, we can very collaboratively, and my poor wife, bless her heart, she's usually the sounding board for all this, but I can give her a little bit of a break and run some of the business ideas and some of the brainstorming things for marketing and all that, that I have by, this artificial intelligence tool.
Yes.
That's really the way that I've been using it. I think the most in my daily life, 100%.
Mm-hmm. I love that prompt that you just said out loud. And I want to call back to it, which was help me brainstorm on an X topic. I think I've never tried that. And that sounds really interesting. Like it can help you to think through ideas and possibilities, whether that's for content or something else. I think that's a really good idea. The other way this week I've discovered during my challenge, I don't really love what ChatGPT comes up with when it's writing for me. So I tried to have it write a script for an Instagram story. It was terrible. I tried to have it help me with my email newsletter. I hated it. But what I've really liked is when I actually give it a ton of input and ask it to give me less output in the way of take this whole blog post and write 3 social media posts based on this blog post with a call to action to go read the whole blog post. So I gave it a ton of input so it knows the voice and the tone and what I'm doing. And then I'm asking it to kind of summarize and pull out important pieces. So I think that's another way to think about it. If you're a business where you already have a lot of content created, you can actually call back to your old blog posts, put them in the tool, and have it create more from them. So I right now, that's my favorite way to think about using it.
Yeah, kind of using it, asking it to learn your style a little bit. So, Sarah, are you cool just going deep on this for a second?
Yeah.
Because I've got something that I really think the audience might like. Again, just popped into my head as a result of you saying that. You can do summaries, and ChatGPT does summaries really well. And there's not necessarily, I know there's some input, but there's not. It's pretty long, the input, as far as how much data you can give ChatGPT to ask it to summarize. And so a huge unlock that I hope venue owners and venue operators try, take your contract that you have that's long and lengthy, paste the entire thing into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize in as simple terms as possible each one of the sessions. And when you go to indemnification and when you go to all sorts of different insurance topics and indemnities and different things that are built into contracts that you may not be comfortable explaining to your clients because you're not a lawyer, right? You're not an insurance agent, and that's to be expected. Use ChatGPT's 1 or 2 liners, and I've seen that it's so powerful. It's such a wonderful way to simplify all this legalese into a conversation that you can actually have with your clients.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's almost writing you your own talking points so that you could talk them through the contract. How else would you use that? Would you kind of like put, here's a summary of our contract in an email, or how would you use that output when you get it?
So I have had people ask about waivers of subrogation. I've had people ask about the indemnity clause. I've had people ask about different pieces of the use of a property that might have a fairly complex, written out. And the lawyer is trying to do his best. He wants to get everything in there. He wants to protect your assets and want to make sure that there's no liability. But at the same time, sometimes it's difficult to read. And so I either tend to use it to explain different pieces individually, like give me 1 sentence or 2 sentences to explain to my client this waiver of subrogation, and copy it, put it into ChatGPT, give it that prompt, and it will spit you out that 1 or 2 sentences. And it's a very easy way to just copy and paste that in an email response to the client who's asking about it. The other way that I've seen it used really well is, I hate to admit this, and I hope that the venue owners and operators and business owners on here can give me grace, but sometimes we put these contracts together, and then as my business grows, as our businesses grow, things change. I might look back and I might say, wait, what was I trying to say back there? And I'm not a lawyer, right? I don't, sometimes it just takes extra time that I don't want to spend looking through that contract. So if you've taken your final contract and you've summarized it like that, you can go back and have this easy to read, bullet pointed out summary of your entire contract and very quickly go to section 4. I've actually gone as far as to create that summary, and in my template contract that I have, I just list the summary at the very top. So if I have any questions that come up, I can very quickly know that I'm going to section 13 or whatever it happens to be. So I would say 10 out of 10, put your contracts into ChatGPT and ask for a summary, and you will be glad you did, because it will really simplify it quite a bit.
That's amazing. I love it. And it's much better than the opposite option, which is write me a venue contract for my wedding venue. I would say don't do that.
Yeah, maybe not on that, especially after what you were saying as far as the accuracy goes. There's one other thing that I think is worth mentioning, and I'm curious, have you played around at all with asking ChatGPT to act as?
I haven't. I'd love to hear you talk about that.
So I've started to use this because it's hard to say. Basically, ChatGPT gives you output based on what you input. Mm-hmm. And so if what you input isn't very great, it also will not output very great. And so I have, as I've been doing research about artificial intelligence and just using ChatGPT, it seems like the more data that you give it, the better, more specific answer it'll give you. And then you can actually ask it to act as fill in the blank. So you can say, please, like, I'm trying to do whatever it is. So let's take a HR example. You're a venue owner, let's say, and you want to hire a sales manager, and you want to make sure that there's a job description for your sales manager. I would, into ChatGPT, put, hello, I am a wedding venue owner. My venue is located in this city and state. This is the type of venue that I have. This is roughly what I would like a sales manager to do. Can you act as an HR manager and write me a job description for this role? And it takes that act as, and what you're doing essentially is asking ChatGPT to assume the role of, right, an HR manager, an accountant, a lawyer, whoever it is, and they will give you responses that are more in the cadence that you could expect from an HR manager. And I found that has given me much more accurate results than just asking the question outright.
Oh, that's so cool. I definitely need to think about that more as what should we act as? But I wonder if you could even say act as someone who's planning a wedding and tell me like common concerns or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, I think that you probably could. And I'd be curious if you could give it, you were talking about giving it some of your writing. I wonder if you could give it as much writing of your writing as it would take, maybe 3-4 blog posts, like you said, older ones, and said, act as me and write a similar tone and style. But like, you have to give it that extra data, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I've had so much fun with that. I've had fun with it. Brainstorming ideas for slogans. I've used, again, my design friends on here are going to hate me probably, but I've used it for creating a logo. Like I created a logo for a new National Wedding and Event Venue Association.
Wow.
In a matter of, 20 seconds, it created a really cool multicolored logo that I don't know, really liked. And some people may not like it. I liked it. And we're using it as the logo, but yeah, I've had a lot of fun with AI.
Yeah, I was talking to my brother this morning after I sent my email newsletter about how I don't love ChatGPT, and he was like, "This named a business I just started." I was like, "What? Tell me more." He was like, "We knew what initials we wanted, like we had an acronym, and we wanted 3 words that were like, that summarized what the business did." And so we gave up all those parameters and it came up with 10 different options and we chose one. So it's really interesting when you kind of use it for that brainstorming ideas. It can do a lot for you in a very little amount of time. And then you can decide if you're going to use it or what you're going to do with it.
Yeah, Sarah, I'd like to just dig in there a little bit because I'm curious your take on this theory, this concept that it's going to actually replace jobs. Like, I know as a copywriter, someone who's doing copywriting, someone who's doing SEO, one of the people that I have loved having on the podcast, Sam Jacobson, he does copywriting. And, we kind of gently, this was a while back when ChatGPT was first coming out, but I kind of gently tossed in that question, are you concerned about the business? What's your response to that? Do you feel like artificial intelligence is going to jeopardize some of these creative jobs?
I think that there are definitely ways that business owners can now use an AI tool to maybe not hire someone at a very entry level. So I think that's possible. But I also think that there's so much in the human experience that a real professional can offer. And, you know, as you're talking about Sam Jacobson, there's no one who knows more about buyer psychology and how to really get people to buy using words. So I definitely don't think that we're all just going to use AI to generate all of our copy, everything we ever design. I just think that it will support our efforts as business owners to get things done faster. So I think that humans are still needed in so many ways. And I also know where the tools are currently at, they're not sophisticated enough to really do high-level technical work. I actually was, you know, is AI going to take my job? I put in a page that I was working on optimizing. And I said, write an interesting SEO description for this page, keep it to 150 to 160 characters, and include the focus keyword and the keyword I had chosen. And it just did a terrible job. It didn't listen to my character count. It didn't include the keyword I told it to. So I don't know if it was just having a bad day or it knew that it's not my favorite, but it really didn't do a good job. And I was like, so this was another example where I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to use what it created because I know exactly what I want to say that would actually get people to click on this page in the search results. Mm-hmm. So there's so much the advantage that a real professional has in understanding what's really going to work, and the tools aren't really there yet to take over 100% of any job.
Yeah. Let's switch the POV a little bit. You know, take this from a perspective of a professional like yourself who is thinking about, gosh, am I going to be replaced? Maybe having concerns about that. You know, my whole business was copywriting for my clients, and 3 of my 10 clients just canceled because they're now using, you know, ChatGPT or Jasper, whoever. How do you think that professionals in this space that are almost like threatened by this new technology could actually use ChatGPT and use some of these tools to even be more effective?
Yeah, well, I think at some level, we all need to learn a little bit about how to become a prompt engineer. What do you need to put in a tool like this to get a good output? And that's a competitive advantage as well. So if everyone's using AI, but you understand it better than others do, and you know how to do things like, you know, do this as this type of role, or you know how to input things so that the AI really understands the voice and tone you're looking for, there's definitely advantages to that too. So I actually watched an amazing series of YouTube videos done by a copywriter on how she uses AI in her business. And she talked about the ways that it can write copy, but she prompts it following a lot of knowledge that she has. So she'll tell it, use the AIDA formula for writing sales copy for this topic. So she's giving it really advanced prompts based on her expertise. So I think that's one thing that people can do if they feel threatened is don't avoid the tool. You might have to give yourself a 7-day challenge to do everything in your business using the tool and see if you can figure out how to get a better output.
Sarah, I want to give you a shout out because if anyone's not subscribed to Sarah's newsletter, you should. I actually open your emails. I read them. They're very interesting. I was smiling when you first were sharing about the challenge because I read this and you were like, I don't love this. I literally have it like right here. It was like, I don't love this. What was the topic?
I'm pretty sure that was the subject line today.
Yeah, I don't love this. And then it was like ... But I think that you do such a good job of breaking it down. And so, yeah, kudos to you. Go subscribe to Sarah's newsletter. But plug aside, I think that you're totally right. And I think it's interesting to consider using OpenAI, their product, ChatGPT, Jasper, any one of these tools. I mean, on this call, I'm using a artificial intelligence transcription tool that is helping me create show notes. Now, with that said, I'm going to have to go and look at those show notes and make sure that it accurately transcribed everything and we don't just blindly copy and paste that over. But at the same time, this is saving me from having to hire someone who's sitting right here and taking notes. It is creating and building in efficiencies into my workflows. And I think regardless of the industry you're in, regardless of the piece of the wedding and event industry that you're a part of, artificial intelligence can really solve a lot of problems for you. Sara, what do you think about the idea that using these tools can actually make it cheaper? Like maybe we can lower prices for our clients, but take on more clients because we're able to kind of automate some of the things that before took us 5 hours. Well, now they only take us 2 hours. So that can double our output. We can bring on more clients. Now we even have a bigger business. Does that sound like a valid potential?
Of course, yeah. I mean, we're all trying to figure out how to get more done in less time. And if we can do that and reduce the number of hours it takes us to deliver a project, imagine the number of administrative hours it takes you to serve each wedding client. If you can reduce that, you certainly could take on more. And that's one of the reasons I think everyone should experiment with this and see what it can do. Sometimes in my projects, we have to write SEO descriptions for 30 pages, and it is pretty monotonous work. So that's one of the things I'm trying to figure out. How can we use AI to do the things that feel kind of formulaic? How can we create a formula that AI can follow so that it becomes a process that's part of our business that does save time and make things easier without reducing the value of what we create? I want it to be able to create at the same level that my team can. I don't want to sacrifice quality. So that's why I'm trying so hard to figure it out, because I do want to be able to eliminate the tasks that nobody really wants to do and make sure everyone can spend more time doing the real creative work that they really find valuable. So I think that's step number one.
100%. And doubtless, these tools have a long way to go. I, again, might ruffle some feathers because I feel like this is such a sensitive topic for a lot of people. But do you feel like it would be possible to have an AI wedding planner?
Ooh, I don't think it's a good idea. It's probably possible, but there's some risk involved too. And I hope that the general consumer is being informed about the fact that what comes out of these AI tools is not always accurate or a good idea. Like, imagine you ask an AI tool to give you a schedule of when you should plan things, kind of like your wedding planning timeline and checklist, and it misses something, or it tells you to book your venue 2 months before your wedding date. You can't trust it to have the right answer as much as you could something that's actually been written, edited, vetted, and published on a high authority website. And I think that's really concerning if people just take everything that comes out of an AI tool as fact.
Mm-hmm. You've highlighted such an important point that really, and I think for all of our listeners, the most powerful thing about this is a seasoned, experienced professional who is now augmented by some of these tools, but who has the wisdom, the knowledge, the insight, the experience to go in and say, gosh, yeah, booking your venue 2 months before is not going to be what you want to do. Let's correct that. But the rest of this looks pretty good, right? And being able to streamline and simplify. I love that. Awesome. Well, Sara, thank you. I appreciate you coming back on today. I know we kind of dabbled in AI and we talked a little bit about SEO. Do you have any kind of concluding thoughts as far as utilizing AI or SEO goes, and really how the landscape has changed since this has come out?
Yeah, I have some encouragement for business owners who are like, I feel like everything's changing so fast that I don't even know what to invest time in and how people will be searching in the future. I think the good news to remember is there will always be engaged couples, potential clients who need information and are looking for service providers. And it just became easier than ever to get more answers and more helpful information onto your website and onto the properties that you own. So no matter where people are searching, it's now easier for you to give them great advice. And take advantage of this time where you have these tools that can help you to generate great things that actually really help people. Don't just think about it as the way of, I can create tons and tons of content now and rank on Google. Think about how you can use an AI tool to better provide answers. And those are always going to be things that people are looking for and things that need to be on your website. So no matter where people are searching, there is a place where all of your best information can be found.
I love that. So true. And, I told everyone to go check out your newsletter. Sara, you do really create such incredible information based on your experience. You're seeing what is changing and what's not changing. And like you've said, a lot hasn't changed. There are still, I think the majority of the bones of SEO are all there. And so it would be, I think, naive to just skip over it and think, oh, let's just write 52 blog posts on ChatGPT and it's going to be, game over for my website's ranking, right? You got to invest time into it. And so if people want to connect with you and get really a deep dive into what they can be doing for their websites and not only SEO, but just get better overall website visits and showing in search and things like that, where should they be headed?
So definitely follow me on Instagram, where I share a lot of what's going on right now at Sara Does SEO. I do have my signature SEO program called Wedding SEO Bootcamp that I would definitely encourage everyone listening to check out. We will be keeping up with the current trends. We'll be talking about AI and how that can be used to support your efforts. And I will definitely be teaching on content strategies that are still working in 2023, that are bringing my clients tons and tons of traffic and the right traffic looking for exactly what they have to offer. So Wedding SEO Bootcamp, I would highly recommend.
I love that you said the right traffic, because we might be getting traffic, but is it the right traffic? And that's what you specialize in.
Yes.
So, very cool. Well, Sara, thank you. I appreciate you coming on today. I am excited for people to listen to this podcast, and it's always good getting to create with you. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. It was great. I'm so glad that I could learn some things from you today too.
It's a fun topic. I'm obsessed with it.